When you think of the world's great intelligence agencies, few have a reputation quite like Israel's Mossad. Their missions are so audacious, so elaborate, they often feel like they're straight out of a spy movie. They basically turn the entire world into their own personal stage. So let's get into it. This quote from a former Mossad insider, it just says it all, doesn't it? For them, espionage isn't just about sneaking around and gathering intel. No, it's a full-on production. They control everything, the script, the casting, the final scene. They're aiming for a flawless performance where the target doesn't even realize they're the star of the show. So what does that actually look like when the cameras are rolling?
Well, let's start with one of their most legendary operations, targeting a man named Imad Mughniyeh. He was Hezbollah's second-in-command, a true mastermind of terror. But he was so elusive, so incredibly careful, that he was known simply as the Ghost. For decades, this guy was totally untouchable. So the question for the Mossad was huge. How do you even begin to hunt a man who barely exists?
The biggest thing to understand here is the incredible patience this took. I mean, this wasn't a quick job. It was a 25-year-long obsession. They tried some pretty ruthless tactics, like assassinating his brother just to see if they could lure him to the funeral. But he was too smart for that. He never showed. The first real break didn't come for over 20 years, and it came from Hezbollah itself. They made a mistake, releasing a propaganda video where for just a few frames you could see the Ghost's face. Then, a massive hack of Iranian government files finally gave them his location, a safe house in Damascus. After a quarter century, the walls were finally closing in. So how did they pull it off? Well, operating in Damascus was way too risky for Israeli agents, so they partnered with the CIA to get eyes on the ground. And American agents soon discovered Mughniyeh's one and only weakness. This supposedly pious family man had secret mistresses he would visit all by himself. It was a shocking break in his own security. That was the opening they needed. After 32 aborted attempts, 32 times they were ready to go and had to stand down, agents finally got their chance. They swapped his SUV's spare tire cover with one packed with a bomb. The next time he was confirmed to be alone, the trap was sprung. Just like that, the Ghost was gone. The Mughniyeh operation was a masterpiece, a perfect blend of patience, intelligence, and precision. It was the Mossad at the absolute top of their game. But what happens when that very same agency gets it wrong? And not just a little wrong, but spectacularly, publicly wrong. This is where the story gets really interesting. All right, let's fast forward to 2010. The target was a Hamas weapons coordinator named Mahmoud Al-Mabhouh. The location was Dubai. On paper, the plan seemed pretty straightforward, but it was about to unravel into a series of clumsy, almost comical errors that would expose the agency to the entire world. Honestly, the mission was just a cascade of failures. First, they completely underestimated Dubai, thinking its security was second-rate. Big mistake. Second, the hit squad actually reused the same fake passports on different trips, which created a really obvious pattern for investigators. Third, and you can't make this up, agents paid for things with debit cards that were easily traced back to an Israeli-run company. Fourth, their supposedly secure phone calls were all routed through one switchboard in Austria, leaving a perfect digital trail. And finally, they just seemed to completely ignore Dubai's massive network of CCTV cameras, which, of course, recorded their every move. So yeah, the target was eliminated, but the mission was a total strategic disaster. The diplomatic fallout was immediate and intense. You had furious allies like France and Australia publicly condemning them. But what was even worse was that dozens of agents' identities were plastered all over the news, and the Mossad's operational playbook, their secret methods, was laid bare for all their enemies to study. The Dubai debacle was a profound public humiliation. But buried inside that catastrophic failure was a powerful lesson. The world had changed. Hit squads with fake passports just weren't going to cut it in an age of biometrics and cameras on every corner. The Mossad realized they got to evolve, or they were going to become a relic. And boy, did they evolve. The lessons they were forced to learn from that embarrassing failure in Dubai directly inspired a radical new way of thinking, an approach to espionage that was way more patient, far more sophisticated, and ultimately much more devastating. I mean, just look at the contrast here. The old way, the Dubai method, was all about putting agents on the ground. It was high risk, messy, and it always left a trail. The new philosophy was revolutionary and kind of genius. Why risk your own people at all when you can trick the enemy into becoming the delivery system for you? The new goal was to create operations with zero Israeli footprint, indirect, technological, and completely deniable. And this brings us to the pager plot, which is the perfect example of this new type of asymmetric espionage. See, Hezbollah was extremely paranoid about Israel hacking their smartphones, so they started looking for low-tech, secure alternatives. They landed on pagers and walkie-talkies, thinking they were too simple to be hacked electronically. And the Mossad saw that and realized it was the perfect Trojan horse.
The complexity of this plan is just staggering. This wasn't a spy mission so much as it was a decade-long business venture. The Mossad set up a shell company in Budapest. They licensed the tech from Hezbollah's actual supplier in Taiwan, and then had engineers secretly embed tiny, powerful explosives into the device batteries. Then, using slick YouTube ads and big discounts, they sold thousands of these rigged devices to Hezbollah through their own trusted suppliers. And then, they just waited.
And just so you can wrap your head around the scale here, we're talking about 16,000 rigged walkie-talkies sold to Hezbollah starting back in 2014, on top of thousands of pagers. For 10 years, these devices sat there completely dormant, a secret network of tiny bombs woven right into the fabric of Hezbollah's communication system. Then, in mid-September of 2024, the moment finally came. Israeli intelligence got a tip that Iran was about to inspect the devices. It was now or never. A single, encrypted signal was sent out. And just like that, the trap sprung. In an instant, thousands of pagers and walkie-talkies being held by Hezbollah fighters and commanders detonated at the exact same time. The payoff for a decade of patience had arrived in a single brutal moment. The results were absolutely devastating. In one fell swoop, the attack took out hundreds of operatives and completely shattered Hezbollah's command and control network, creating pure chaos. This unprecedented blow left the organization incredibly vulnerable, and it's what paved the way for the later assassination of its leader, Hassan Nasrallah. It accomplished more than any bombing raid ever could, and it did it with 0 Israeli casualties. And this brings it all full circle. This was the ultimate lesson, born directly from the ashes of the Dubai failure. In the world of modern espionage, the most effective weapon isn't one you carry yourself. It's the one your enemy willingly carries for you. The Mossad had turned a mortifying public failure into a silent, invisible, and truly history-making victory. So, it leaves us with this final thought. The evolution from the clumsy disaster in Dubai to the surgical precision of the pager plot is a massive leap. It really makes you wonder, what comes next? What does spycraft even look like when the real battlefield isn't a dark alley, but a global supply chain? And the most powerful weapon isn't a gun, but just a single line of code?